Hey, thanks for pressing play and watching this very special issue of the Gouge. Alright? I know I said on the last one that we're going to be talking about terrorist group Boko Haram, giving out a little bit more information. Believe me, there's a ton of it out there and what's going on right now. And, it's all over mainstream media and it's pretty much all over social media as well too. But I promise you, we're going to get to it the next episode of the Gouge. Today, got a little bit of a special message to put out. Something came across my desk. It's a story that I read about a couple years ago. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about Commander Kelly's speech of two Marines, Corporal Jonathan Yell, who's 22 years old, and Lance Corporal Jordan Harder, who was 20. These were both Marines, and it's a very powerful story. And I'm going to be reading some of Commander Kelly's speech over this, but just try to envision the greater message here, not just of the heroic events that these two Marines did, not just that their esprit de corps, their trust in one another, inalienable trust in one another, that the military brings out. I mean, it brings out the best in everybody, and I am definitely one that is a very proud byproduct of the military. I'm a very proud product of the industrial military complex. A lot of y'all know, did 8 years in the Marine Corps, was 2.5, black heart through and through. And once I got out, I did 7 years contracting and spent the majority of that 7 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, wrapping up about 10 months to a year in the Balkans, and enjoyed every minute of it. The dedication to service is beyond measure, and that's what these two Marines displayed. Now let's give you a little bit of a backstory here. All right, the Battle of Ramadi. Some people actually refer it to the Second Battle of Ramadi. Happened in June of 2006 to November of 2006. Now this was a huge battle. It encompassed the U.S. Army, it encompassed units from the Marine Corps, it encompassed SEALs from the Navy, and newly formed Iraqi security forces were actually starting to see action. The fall of Fallujah took the center of the insurgency from Fallujah into Ramadi, which brought about the Battle of Ramadi. It is a very fought battle. It was definitely, some people would like to say after Fallujah it was the next Hoy City for the Marine Corps. We've had a lot of those. Believe me, we've had a lot of those. We've had a lot of history-making battles within the Marine Corps, definitely within the U.S. military. But this story just really stands out because it's such a powerful message that I believe everybody needs to see. We have it out there, but I don't think it really does justice by reading it. That to really hear it and hear somebody say it really pushes a deeper message of unity, of patriotism, of brotherhood. Even for our female viewers out there, is sisterhood. it's just a unity of all of us, a combined effort that we're all Americans. And Ramadi is about a population of 500,000. In comparison, you're looking at like Tulsa, Oklahoma. So think of population-wise a city the size of Tulsa, Oklahoma. During these events, the story took place in 2008. This incident took place in 2008. 1-9, which is known as the Walking Dead, and 2-8, which is known as America's Battalion. In the Marine Corps, we have our sayings for our units, and we absolutely love them. I'm a 5th Marine, and we were the Fighting 5th. I was with Fox Company, we were called Blackhearts. And that's just names that are earned, that we've earned throughout our history, and I'm very proud to be a part of the Black Arts. I'm very proud to be one of Fox Company is a very prestigious unit in 2-5. And I love listening to a lot of these other Marines from different battalions that just sit there and talk about it, and they always refer to themselves, you know, to their names. So 1-9, The Walking Dead, and 2-8, America's Battalion, they're doing a changeover, a change of command. 1-9 was actually coming out of their deployment, and 2-8 was starting their deployment, and it was in Ramadi. And one night, while on post, a Corporal Jonathan Yell and a Lance Corporal Jordan Harder stood post, and they actually died on that post. They stood between a suicide bomber and a truck and defended everybody that was under their watch that night and saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. But let me read you the events of that night. Now this comes from Commander Kelly's speech. 2 years ago, when I was the commander of all U.S. and Iraqi forces, in fact, the 22nd of April 2008, 2 Marine infantry battalions, 1-9, The Walking Dead, and 2-8 were switching out in Ramadi. One battalion in the closing days of their deployment, going home very soon. The other just started in a 7-month combat tour. 2 Marines, Corporal Jonathan Yo and Lance Corporal Jordan Harder, 22 and 20 years old respectively, one from each battalion, were assuming the watch together at the entrance gate of the outpost that contained a makeshift barracks housing 50 Marines. The same broken down ramshackle building was also home to 100 Iraqi police. Also my men and our allies in the fight against the terrorists in Ramadi, a city until recently the most dangerous city on earth and owned by Al-Qaeda. Yell's a dirt poor mixed race kid from Virginia with a wife and a daughter, and a mother and a sister who lived with him, and he supported as well. He did this on a yearly salary of less than $23,000 a year. Harder, on the other hand, was a middle-class white kid from Long Island. They were from 2 completely different worlds. Had they not joined the Marine Corps, they would have never had met each other or understood that multiple Americans exist simultaneously depending on one's race, education level, economic status, and where you might have been born. But they were Marines, combat Marines, forged in the same crucible of Marine training. And because of this bond, they were brothers, as close or closer than if they were born by the same mother. Their mission orders they received from their sergeant squad leader. I am sure when something like, okay, you 2 clowns, stand this post and let no unauthorized personnel or vehicle pass. You clear? I am sure that Yale and Harder then rolled their eyes and said in unison something like, yes, Sergeant. With just enough attitude that made the point without saying the words. No kidding, sweetheart. We know what we're doing. They then relieved 2 other Marines on watch and took up the post at the entry control point of Joint Security Station Nasiriyah in the Sofia section of Ramadi. A few minutes later, a large blue truck turned down the alleyway, perhaps 60-70 yards in length, and sped its way through the centipede of concrete jersey walls. The truck stopped just short of where the 2 were posted and detonated, killing them both catastrophically. 24 brick masonry houses were damaged and destroyed. A mosque 100 yards away collapsed. The truck's engine came to rest 200 yards away, knocking most of the house down before it stopped. Our explosive expert reckoned the blast was made of 2,000 pounds of explosives. 2 died, and because those 2 young infantrymen didn't have it in their DNA to run from danger, they saved 150 of their Iraqi and American brothers in arms. read the situation report about the incident a few hours after it happened. I called the regimental commander for details, as something about this stuck with me different. Marines dying or being seriously wounded is commonplace in combat. We expect Marines, regardless of rank or MOS, to stand their ground and do their duty, and even die in the process, if that is what the mission takes, but just seemed different. The regimental commander had just returned from the site and he agreed, but reported that there were no American witnesses to the event, just Iraqi police. I figured if there was any chance to find out what exactly happened and then to decorate the two Marines to acknowledge their bravery, I'd have to do it as a combat award that requires 2 eyewitnesses, and we figured the bureaucrats back in. Washington would never buy Iraqi statements. If it had any chance at all, it had to come under the signature of a general officer. I traveled to Ramadi the next day and spoke individually to a half-dozen Iraqi police, all of whom told the same story. The blue truck turned down into the alley and immediately sped up as it made its way through the centipede. They all said we knew immediately what was going on as soon as the 2 Marines began firing. The Iraqi police then related that some of them also fired, and then a man ran for safety just prior to the explosion. All survived. Many were injured, some seriously. One of the Iraqis elaborated and with tears welling up said they'd run like normal men would to save his life. Understand that. He said they'd run like any normal man would to save his life. What he didn't know until then, he said, and what he learned that very instant, was that Marines are not normal. Choking past the emotion, he said, "Sir, in the name of God, no sane man would have stood there and done what they did. No sane man. They all saved us." What we didn't know at the time, and only learned a couple days later after I wrote a summary and submitted both yellow and harder for post-mortem Navy crosses, was that one of our security cameras, damaged initially in the blast, recorded some of the suicide attack. It happened exactly as the Iraqis had described it. It took exactly 6 seconds from when the truck entered the alley until it detonated. You can watch the last 6 seconds of their young lives. Putting themselves in their heads, I suppose it took about a second for the 2 Marines to separately come to the same conclusion about what was going on once the truck came within their view at the far end of the alley. Exactly no time to talk it over or call the sergeant to ask what they should do. Only enough time to take half an instant and think about what the sergeant told them to do only a few minutes before. Let no unauthorized personnel or vehicles pass. The 2 Marines had about 5 seconds left to live. It took maybe another 2 seconds for them to present their weapon, take aim, and open up. By this time, the truck was halfway through the barriers and gaining speed the whole time. Here the recording shows a number of Iraqi police, some of whom had fired their AKs, now scattering like normal and rational men they were, some running right past the Marines. They had 3 seconds left to live. For about 2 seconds more, the recording shows the Marines' weapons firing non-stop. The truck's windshield exploding in shards of glass as the rounds take it apart and tear into the body of the son of a bitch who was trying to get past them to kill their brothers, American and Iraqi. Bedded down in the barracks, totally unaware of the fact that their lives at that moment depended entirely on 2 Marines standing their ground. If they had been aware, they would have known they were safe, because 2 Marines stood between them and a crazed suicide bomber. The recording shows the truck carrying to stop immediately in front of the 2 Marines. And all of the instance violence, Yale and Harder never hesitated. By all reports and by the recording, they never stepped back. They never even stepped to the side. They never even shifted their weight. Their feet spread their shoulder width apart. They leaned into danger, firing as fast as they could work their weapons. They only had 1 second to live. The truck explodes. The camera goes black. 2 young men go to their God. 6 seconds. Not enough time to think about their families, to think about their country, their flag, or about their lives or their deaths. But more than enough time for 2 very brave young men to do their duty into eternity. That is the kind of people we are on watch. That is the kind of people who are on watch all over the world tonight for you. That was Commander Kelly's speech about 2 heroes, 2 American heroes. So different, such a diversity, such a melting pot. They were Americans. And any combat veteran can sit there and tell you, and I can tell you, that when you're in war, all you're thinking about is your brothers. All you're thinking about is the guy to the right and the guy to the left. That's it. And you do everything you can to make sure that they come home. Why? Because by taking care of the guy to the right and taking care of the guy to the left, I'm somehow saving their community. And if I can get them back home, then that's one more family that's alive. Makes America stronger. We do it by the little bits. We do it by the baby steps. And say what you want, but no Marine runs from danger, just like those 2. They didn't run back. They didn't run to the right. They didn't run to the left. I can almost promise you they both looked at each other, and without saying anything, they knew what they needed to do. Not only were they brave Marines, but they were brave Americans. And I believe that the bigger picture that we should take from their heroic example is that we should always be there for each other. I hear all this about how we need to take America back. In order for that to happen, not only do we have to start in our own homes, but we got to start in our own communities. We got to start trusting each other again. We got to start having neighbors coming over for cookouts. We got to start learning about each other, getting back to trusting each other. God bless those 2 Marines. God bless my fellow Blackhearts that are serving now. And God bless every single one of y'all out there. Y'all pray for us, and we pray for y'all. We just might do it a little differently. Thank you for this special edition of the Gouge. I'm glad that you got to watch it. By all means, drop a line. Let me know what it is that you think, what it is that you think I should talk about. Again, like I said, on that next volume, we are going to talk about terrorist groups. I'm going to put out more information about Boko Haram and what's going on. I'm going to touch a bit deeper of an issue about the extremists coming from Islam and what we're seeing worldwide, just not in our own backyard. You'd be hard-pressed to believe that there are some states here in this country that have banned Sharia law. Should be an eye-opener for you. But again, thank you for pressing play. Thanks for listening to me. And this is the Gouge. And by all means, you know what? Tomorrow, do something special. Compliment somebody. Give your wife a hug. Give your kids a hug. All right? It makes us better. Take it easy, and that's the Gouge.